Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shaostoul and this is the 17th episode of the Modding Tutorials. In this episode we're going to be discussing the different textures for DirectX 11 and looking at how it is they behave within the game environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up Space Engineers and I'm going to look at my master pack on a new world and I'm going to mess with the textures to try to help you understand how it is they behave in the game. So I'm just going to go ahead and change some of the settings around and get everything working. So I'm loading up my local version of the mod so I can actually live edit the textures so you can see them change. So hopefully that'll make things a little bit better. And I'm just going to go ahead and disable extra stuff, call it good there, and start. So I'm not covering DirectX 9 because it's no longer supported by the devs. If you guys want me to cover DirectX 9, make sure to leave a comment in the comment section below and I will try to make a video for it, but it's not exactly high priority anymore. But if you guys request it enough, I'll go ahead and do it. Alright, so here we are in game. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw a station down real quick. Try to find out the sun angle. Just make a nice big platform. And then get rid of these and load some different blocks. I'm going to go to my Shell Corp tab. And I'm going to, let's see. I'll throw this on there. And this. Throw the bumpers on there. Force field. Binaries. Gravity generator. And the two interiors. Actually, let's get the open top ones. So this one and this one. I'm going to place these down. So that is a giant antenna. Those are my catwalks. The bumpers. Force field. Move down here. Come on. And your refinery and assembler. Gravity generator. And the two different interiors. Alright. So first things first, this is the giant magic disc or antenna. It's not really special in any regard. And you can see that it's very dark. And I'm not 100% sure how to fix that from a aluminum texture point of view. I'm going to go ahead and throw a reactor down. But for some reason, the high metalness and high gloss of the aluminum texture sometimes gives you black looking textures, but they are indeed silver. If I come over to these, you can actually see that the drums are silver there. These drums here are silver. And these are, and the gravity generator has its silver piece and its copper pieces. And I'm not really sure why the glossiness likes making everything super dark. It's probably because I don't have anything going on. If I was on a planet, this would probably be all kinds of different colors, maybe a lot of blue. But for the most part, that's how it is. Coming over to the catwalks, this is the copper texture. And then we have the armor, the dark armor texture with the normal armor texture here. And then we get the white emissives on the corners. We got my bumper blocks over here. And you can see that it's seamless, which is what I thoroughly enjoy. I like the seamlessness of the texture without it being a flat color, because I think it makes it just look a little bit better in my opinion. Over here we get the force field, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do this. As a warning, if you're doing transparent materials, they won't show up when you're going to place them. So if I go like this, you don't see it. So I get tons of complaints about the filler force field being invisible and super hard to place. The only way I know of at the moment to make it show up is by adding 3D mesh to it to actually have it show up. But that means it's going to have an opaque design in it, which might make it harder to see through. But then I come over here and I have my different interiors. We get the wood looking texture down there. This is actually a leather and it's repaintable. So I can come over here and try to get it like a brown color. Like that, and paint it. Nah, it's still super yellow, but it's like a leathery looking texture, as you can kind of see, but it's recolorable. And then over here we have a actually 3D modeled floor. This one is just normal map, and this one is actually mesh, so those lights are actually popping out and all that stuff. And then we get some copper pillars. And then over here we have the gravity generator that I made with the copper radiators and all that stuff. But these are the easiest ones to show you guys. So here I have the copper texture. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple edits on that so you can see how it would change if I was to change various settings on the textures. So I'm going to go ahead and back out, and I'm going to go into my master pack and find the copper and load that one up. Alright, there we go. Alright, so here we have the additive map, and you can see that it doesn't technically have an alpha layer, and that's because it is black, and Photoshop likes removing it when it doesn't have anything there, which probably saves some space, but because it's a DDS, I don't believe it actually removes any file size. I could be wrong, but I believe that's how it is. Here we can see that the red layer is fully white, so that means that it has total ambient occlusion. None of it is actually showing there. If I go ahead and go to the bucket and paint this gray and then save it. So when you're saving the texture, you want to do it as a DXT5 or BC3 as it's called nowadays. 8 bytes per pixel. If I do this drop down, you can see that there's a whole bunch here. This one right here is the one you want because that's the proper version. You don't want to do this _NM version, so just keep that in mind while you're making your textures. There's some settings you can mess with in here, but some of them don't really make any difference at all. The only one that I really noticed a difference from was the normal map settings, and I haven't been doing too much with that lately, so I can't go too in depth on the different settings and what they would do for your normal map. So go ahead and save that. And as you can see, it didn't change it yet. So what you have to do is you have to press F11 and reload textures. Now, if you're hopping in and out real quick, make sure you actually save the texture and then wait like a couple seconds and then press reload, or else you're gonna have some weird issues of it's sometimes crashing on you if you go too quick between them. So here we can see that the copper actually became a silvery color, which is a little weird, and that might be because the alpha is actually not there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop back in. I'm going to click add new layer, and then I'm just going to leave that black because I don't want it recolorable. And I'm just going to save it again, hop into the game, and press reload. So there you can see it came back. So now you know that if you go in there and you edit a texture and the alpha layer is not there and something weird happens, that you might need to go back, save the texture again with the alpha layer, and then see if it fixes your problem. Alright, so here we can see the copper is a lot darker. So this would be like a more worn, I guess, type of version. But you don't want to do that for the add. So I'll come back and I'll change this to black. And save it. Come in here, wait a couple seconds, and click it. That takes a second. And now you can see it is entirely black. But when I shine my light on it, it becomes coppery looking. So that's because it's not actually hiding the texture in a weird sort of sense. The texture is still there. It's just getting a lot of light not showing up on it. So that sun is not doing anything for these copper textures. But if I was to have an interior light, I believe I'd actually be able to see the textures. And I'm just not seeing it, so I'm just going to type it in. So if I pop that down there, you can actually see that it adds light to the copper texture. So if you're doing this and that issue's showing up for you, you need to actually check your AO layer. I personally suggest keeping it white because that's where you're going to have the least amount of issues on your end. So if I come back here and throw white on it and save, give it a second, and then reload. It's going to go back to being how it was. And there you go, you have the full texture back again. So ambient occlusion is not something that you want to use as a full texture cover because you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. And it's going to look differently depending on the scenario you're doing. On a planet, it might look totally different. When you're running around with just your headlight going on, it's going to look different. If you have interior lights and no sunlight, it's going to show up different. So it's going to be very inconsistent for you if you're using ambient occlusion as shading for something that's large like this. But for small details like a character's face or suit textures, or maybe I want to add some ambient occlusion to this on the hidden areas, it'd make a difference, but it's going to look weird if it's used on a huge area. So I'm going to go ahead and change the texture now again. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it full emissiveness. So this means that it should become a bright orangey color. Or I guess salmon-y flesh color, which is kind of unsettling. So that is full emissiveness. That means it's going to shine as bright as it possibly can without actually shining any light on anything. If you're looking at it from certain angles though, you will actually notice that it has a glow to it. But that's not actually light emitting off of it. That is shader, renderer stuff. There's nothing that it will actually illuminate. So keep that in mind when you're messing with that. It's not actually emitting light. The texture is merely glowing as if it was bioluminescent or something like that, and not lighting anything else up. So yeah, here you can see the copper is shining everywhere, and I can see it pretty much on everything, and it looks the same across all of them. Now, you can do that grayscale and get different effects. It more or less just makes it dimmer and dimmer, so keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and change this to white, and I'm going to go ahead, and that's going to make it recolorable. So if I come in here, F11, reload textures, so the emissiveness will go away, and then they should be gray. So there we go. It's gray now, but that's because it's recolorable. Now if I put yellow on it and color it, get rid of those lights there, it's recolorable now. And if you wanted a copper texture, that's not going to work anymore, because now it looks more like a gold. So just make sure you go through and edit it again, turn it to be black, save it, go back into the game, save it again, or reload it. And it's back to being copper. Now, there's a lot of things you can do to mess with that and try to get different effects, but just keep in mind the recolorable, I suggest either black or white. You can mess with it on grayscale. I don't remember if it still does anything, but it used to be that you would be able to get influence from the color on the CM to be part of the texture that is recolored. So if I was to paint this yellow and that was to be partial recolorable, it might be a weirder color. But if this was blue and that was red, it might be purple. So that's something to keep in mind. Alright, so next we're going to go ahead and look at the CM. So we'll come back here, we can see that the texture is all back to normal. So it seems like when you save the ad and then load it back up, it gets rid of the alpha map. So what that did, I believe, is made that copper texture recolorable. So that's something to keep in mind. If the alpha map is not there, it is probably full white, which means meltiness will be maxed, glossiness will be maxed, recolorable will be maxed. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your ad texture. Coming over to the NG is pretty straightforward. If you're not doing any details on it, it's going to be this simple blue color. And it could be darker or lighter, but you probably want it to be this color or the darker, a slightly darker blue, because if it's any other color, the light is going to mess with it in very weird ways. And I don't want to mess with it too much. Just want you to do that. Just this blue. I'll get you the dropper of it. So this is, I believe, the blue that it actually bakes with on Blender. So here you can see it's 126, 127, 255. So it's half red, half green, full blue. And it'll get you that color. Coming over to the alpha channel, you can see that it is a gray color. Let's see which one I have mine set at. So I have mine set at 80%. So I'm going to go ahead and just max it out at 100%. So this is going to change how it looks gloss-wise. So I'm going to just save it again, come into the game, and reload. So this is actually going to change. And we might see some of the skybox here. Yep, there you go. So as you can see, it's pretty cool, but sometimes it doesn't behave right. Like you'll get textures phasing in and out. Like that, the gravity reactor might be there, but if I move over here, it might still be right around here. And if I come over here, it might still be right around there, but phasing in and out of where it's at. So that is full glossiness, and it looks pretty cool, but it's only so applicable on so many things. However, if you wanted to get very creative with it, you certainly could. As you can see, as I back up, it's actually shifting the level of detail that you actually get on it. And that is to do with mip maps, I believe. And it's just giving you less and less detail. That way you're not killing your computer with reflections, which is very easy to do. And I've done it a few times by making the game crash repeatedly. Or, so there you go. You see that? The reactor was phasing in and out. So, yeah. It's kind of mirror-like, but not really, because you can't see my astronaut. So we'll go back, and I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of... Actually, I'll go down to 50%, so you can see that. So it's going to be more like a unpolished copper-looking kind of texture. So there you go. It's no longer really glossy. It kind of is because it's still shiny, but the further I get away from the gloss, the further it's going to just get more and more plain. Save it again. Sorry this episode's taking so long. I just want you to see the different texture stuff. So this should be no glossiness. And you can see now it's just a matte color. It's not shiny at all. It doesn't have the sun reflecting off of it. Just is showing you the texture. Now it looks kind of weird like that because it still has full metalness. Now if I go back and I change this back to 80%, save it, then come over to the CM, you could see that the metalness is maxed out. Now I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of the metalness. So two things are going to happen. One, this is going to get glossy again. And two, this texture is going to be more bright because it no longer has that metalness there. For some reason, when the metalness and glossiness work together, the textures get darker. So this should be a lot lighter. So there you go. So now it's just that salmony flesh color, and you can see that it is glossy. And then if I go ahead and just give it full glossiness, so you barely see the texture that was there before. You can kind of make out the ground and the sun and the reactor in the background just barely, but it is fully glossy. But it's that weird salmon color. So there are the different levels of metalness that you can do. I'll go ahead and throw 50% on for metalness, so you can see how that looks. I strongly encourage that you guys mess with this stuff on your own time and see how the different things work together and go from there, because it'll help you better understand what it is you're changing and how it works and does this and that. So here we can see it's a little bit less salmony flesh color and a little bit more metallic-y, but it's still very hard to see a reflection off of it. And then when we go back to full metalness with white, it's going to go back to looking like copper, hopefully. There we go. And we're back to where we were. And I'm going to go ahead and just set the gloss back to where it was. was 80%, and save. There we go. Hopefully I didn't save it too fast. Okay, so I like doing the about 80-90% gloss because you could still see that it's reflecting something, but it's not like super detailed, and I feel that it looks a little bit better. If you wanted to go with high glossiness, you certainly could. It just looks like a more polished metal, and that's pretty much my opinion on that. I worked on a shipyard at one point, so I'm used to seeing the clean and brushed metal look, which kind of reminds me of this 80% glossiness. But that pretty much wraps it up. As you can see, the light white there was reflecting, so that means that this actually has gloss to it, and it might also have metalness to it, which is why it might look a little bit weird with that little light that was shining off of it. And I believe it's the same for the green here and this teal over here, so that means I have to go and fix it. And you can see that I got some weird texture stuff going on here, and that's because this is just a beast of a thing to work with. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the textures. You get your add map for your recolorability, you get it for the ambient occlusion. If the red layer is black or some other color than white, your textures are going to appear darker under most circumstances where it's just sunlight, but it might look the normal color with a interior light or spotlight. The green layer being emissiveness, that's this white or green or this teal right here. Then you got the blue, which does nothing on the add layer, and then the alpha, which is recolorability. The CM gives you all the different colors. This is a salmony color on the CM. The aluminum color is white, so you get that color right there if it's white and full metalness and 80% glossiness. Coming over here, I actually have the gold texture, so that's actually gold. That's, I believe, a shade of yellow with 80% glossiness and full metalness. We got some wood down there that has a little bit of glossiness. It has a normal map applied to it, as you can kind of see how it reflects differently with different light. Looks like it might have a little bit of metalness on it because of the way some of the wood is behaving and getting dark, like with that area on the left side of the screen. And that's just different ways that you can inspect your textures. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. Here's a normal map. You can see the bumps on the armor texture. And I think that's everything that I can describe for you for textures. If you would like to help me continue doing what it is I do, please be sure to like and subscribe, and check out my Patreon page through the link in the description below. All donations go towards helping me create more mods and videos, as well as help more people learn to create their own mods, all of which is provided to you guys for free. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a good one.